So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our DID Zoom Q&A session. And today we have Patrick, who's one of the tutors we have in DID, as well as Kianne, who is a year 4 student with us currently. So yes, for today's session, it's pretty chill, nothing too formal. So for students, if you're comfortable, you may please feel free to, of course, show us your faces, just so it's easier to talk to someone that way. But of course, if you're more comfortable, you may just leave any questions that you have for Patrick or Kianne into the Zoom chat below. Okay, so while perhaps we are waiting for everyone to wrap your engines a little bit with the questions that you have for Patrick and Kianne, could we maybe just have a brief introduction from Patrick first, maybe on, who you are, what you do at DID and things like that.
Hi everyone. My name is Patrick Chia. I'm an industrial designer by training. My earlier part of my career was in furniture design, mainly. I work around those areas. And I was also the founding director of the Design Incubation Centre for about 12 years. And currently I'm working, just recently started a new corp lab between SIA and NUS, looking at data-driven kind of insight to create better passenger experience in the cabin. So so in a gist, that's the kind of work that I'm currently working on.
How about
Hi guys, I'm Kianne, and I'm a final year student here at NUS DID, and I'm Patrick's student. He's my thesis supervisor. I came from Ngee Poly also, so anyone who's here who is from Ngee Poly or like any poly, you have questions about how to get into NUS DID, feel free to shoot away.
So maybe to kickstart today's question, Kianne, what does it mean to be Patrick's student?
What does it mean to be Patrick's student?
Better have the right answer.
I think you need a strong heart. I think it's good to have clarity in whatever you're doing in design. And I think working with Patrick, I think my biggest takeaway is to always try to do everything with intention, so you don't when you design something, you should always also consider in the bigger picture, like what are the trends going on in the background, so you have to do your research.
Thanks for that maybe dangerous answer to answer here. But okay. Okay, maybe a next question that I have. For either Kianne or Patrick, how do you know if you have a passion for design, or how do you know that coming to this design course may be suitable for you?
I don't know. I think I don't have the answer for that. I guess in fact my daughter was just also talking to me yesterday about whether she wants to go to university or not. She felt that might not be necessary to go to uni, because you kind of can learn everything from everywhere these days, and maybe it's just better to start to do things on your own, right? So I kind of basically say that not everyone is Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, who kind of know very clearly what they want and also have the technical ability to execute those ideas, right? And if you have that, then by all means, you don't really need to go into the university, or you can get yourself into a top university and then don't really need to finish, right? But for the rest of us who are still kind of trying to figure out, right? I think the university is probably a good place to kind of explore different ideas, just not by yourself, but also with your peers or people that you are in the same class as you, right? It's kind of some kind of comfort to know that everyone is as lost, as clueless as you are, and half the time the professor also just as clueless. So we kind of spend the time to kind of figure out along the way, kind of what is the correct thing, or what is the correct steps to take to move kind of forward. We have something that we kind of like to say a lot in the course here is like, we try to iterate forwards. That means most of the time we don't know what we are doing, but we make something, we create something, and then see what it is, and then start to edit and kind of test, make better version of it. And along the way, you kind of end up in a place where you probably would not have imagined when you just started. Yeah, so I'm not sure that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe on a related kind of question, right? How did you
Mm.
know that you wanted to do design, Patrick? Did you know at all, or
Myself.
did you stumble?
I kind of stumble, but also because I'm ancient, so so I always knew that I wanted to do something to build something in my hands. That's kind of what I knew. I kind of always been making things. I never have any kind of formal design training in that way, but I was always making some stuff here and there. And of course, my mom's have a garment factory, so she works with a lot of fashion designers. My dad are those that will kind of paint the house with his kind of ugly drawings and all that. So I guess from young I'm kind of exposed to that, and to just act on something, not just having an idea, but having an idea and able to act on it, just even if it's a very poorly made version. I think that's kind of the starting point. And so when I came to a time when to choose for university, so by chance there was some overseas university that was here to make some interview, and I have just enough pieces of work to go for an interview with some sketch, some drawings, and some funny things that I make. And yeah, so I kind of got in. So one thing leads to another, then I kind of got into design in that sense. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Patrick. How about Kian? Do you have a story also?
I guess in some way, yes. I actually took 2 years after I graduated from poly before I actually start uni, because I didn't really want to study uni for the sake of studying uni. And so I was working full time for 2 years. And actually, one of the reasons why I kind of got into NUS DID was because I saw a video, and Patrick, you were in it. It said something along the lines of DID actually welcomes students who are actually like blank canvases, and when you come in, it's where we try and teach you what skills are there to be a designer, and you get to kind of like find yourself a little along the way and see how it goes. And I guess a lot of, back to the question, is like how do we know like design is like our passion, right? I think that whether like you're passionate about something, it's only when you are doing it or you're trying it, and the passion comes from the act of doing, and it's not just the act of knowing or like supposing. So yeah, passion was from the act of doing. And because back then I was doing a lot of graphic design in my role, and that's how I kind of like slowly transited into like NUS DID, from graphics and then to products and whatnot. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Kian. Yeah, so I see a question on the chat actually from Yulia, for both Kian and Patrick to answer. What is your favorite thing about DID students?
Maybe Kian can go first.
Your favorite thing about your
My
batchmates, your
favorite thing about
juniors?
my batchmates, I think it's really the camaraderie. It's really like family. Yeah, it's a family here, really. Like we work really hard. we often stay up at night, and then we will actually like encourage one another, and then we go for like suppers together. And I think it's like really like these little moments that kind of like form up most of my memories here. And everyone here is super friendly, super helpful, no matter where you are at. Like you're just a friend. Everyone's a friend. Yeah.
Patrick?
I think there are generally very smart. Most of them are smarter than me. So that makes my job very easy. And also I think they have certain kind of a can-do attitude, right? I'm not sure. I think probably this happens to Kianne's batch when they were first year. We were doing some form studies, and it was a very hard project, and they were working in extremely difficult conditions. This was in the back of the Archi workshop. That's kind of semi-open, and when so I think we only have about 3 or 4 desks, and I think how many are you? 30 or 40 of you trying to squeeze
40,
in.
50.
Yes,
Yeah.
squeeze into that tiny space, and you kind of spread out into on the roads, under the street lamps, and you kind of grab some table and start working there. And when it rains, the whole place was flooding. The workshop is flooding. You can see pieces of foam floating, it's that kind of flood. And nobody ever complained or why and say, oh, this is not possible. I cannot work in this condition. They just get on with it and, and get the thing done. I think that's really is about the difference between, I think, ID students and maybe students from other disciplines. I'm not sure is that a fair thing to say, right? Because I think most of the time we don't whine. Of course, once in a while we get 1 or 2 whiner in a few years, but most of the time, no, we don't get whiner in our course for some reason. And I think our students are also, I think those parents would love their children kind of grown up to be. This is not coming from me. Recently, I think last year we ran a workshops with the cabin crew with SIA, and then we have a few interns that are from DID, and the admin people, they are the manager of the lab. They were so impressed by the students of their kind of work ethics and the way that they are working, that they say, oh yeah, I'm so, how do you train this kind of people, and they are so good, and this is the kind of people that I hope my child, when they grow up, they are like that. So I think, yeah, I think ID people are a special breed in that way. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Patrick. So actually, this is a good lead on to another question in the chat from Kianne. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrongly, but the question is about the culture, right, within DID, and whether you would say that it's competitive, or is it more friendly, or if it's either or, how is that really like, and is it difficult or easy to work together in that case?
Maybe I can share a bit about that, because the competitive part, I think it's more of like maybe technical skills. Maybe that's what you're referring to. Because in DID, normally it's not like a test, it's not like a theory whereby even if you share the same project brief, it doesn't mean that there's only one way to get to the answer. So oftentimes you'll find that maybe this brief that we're working on for a project has like 10 different ways of reaching there, and everyone has like their unique take on it. So in that sense, it's also very hard to compete against one another, because, like, for example, if the theme is nature, one of us may focus on like doing a project on trees, or like one of us would focus on doing like a project on like the sun, for example. And it's just different ways of measuring, so you can't really compare like apple to orange. It's friendly because while we are all working on like our own unique take on an answer, oftentimes if you just ask like someone in studio like, how do I do it, and anyone is always like more than happy to share with you and even like guide you step by step, how do you reach there eventually. Yeah, so if your concern is about maybe you're not confident about technical skills like modeling or whatsoever, as long as you ask, you will always get the help that you receive here in studio. Does that answer your question, Kianne?
Patrick, do you have any add-ons to that about the culture in ID?
No, I do agree with Kianne. I think we have a kind of a much more friendly culture, and the competition is never with each other, but more kind of with yourself, right? I think also in the first year, because I'm also the first year coordinator, so my message is always that you have to be kind to each other, because it's a very difficult course, right? Very demanding, and if you try to do it alone, it's going to be very difficult. But if you have the support of each other, then it's going to make it much easier. And the people that you meet in this course are going to continue to be a very important part of your career, even when you go out professionally. Yeah, both kind of support as a professionally, but also from a personal level. That's also how I am with some of my classmates when I was from Australia. Until today, we are still best friends, and there are people that I can talk to when I'm have any kind of difficulty or challenges or things that I couldn't quite figure out myself. Yeah, so that's extremely important.
Yeah, actually, on this note, perhaps I can also chip in a little bit, because I was also from DID, graduate, and in terms of competitiveness, I do think that there is a certain level of so-called competitiveness, in the sense of, everyone is striving, right, to do their best, and with design and having objects or tangible things that you have, or having beautiful graphics, with a little bit of that sense of competition, right? And then you kind of push and try to deliver something that is beautiful and made. And you see yours doing the same thing, and you're like, oh man, I must make it as beautiful or as well finished as my classmate. And in that sense of competition pushes everyone to deliver even better and better things throughout the years. So at least from my experience, I would say there is a certain level of healthy competitiveness, but it's that level of friendship is still a foundation within the SLA and within and amongst friends and batchmates. Yeah. Okay. So next question we have from Alex, asking about what do you look for in the applicant's portfolio? I guess actually from their J stream. So without much projects other than hobbies or passions, how might they better prepare for the interview without a so-called more traditionally substantial portfolio?
I think in the interview exercise itself, is not just about the portfolio, right? You come in, you do some exercise, and then you are also required to watch a series of videos as such. And so from there, give us enough to kind of start a conversation with you. And within there, we'll see kind of how interested you are. Personally, I look for how clearly do you answer the questions that I'm asking, right? Whether do you remember specific things, or do you kind of just vaguely able to bring out the project but not able to tell me what is the name of the designer, what that project is all about? So that kind of differentiate between those that are truly interested in the first place, and also those that could comprehend, right? I think industrial design is kind of challenging in the sense that it's not a textbook kind of discipline, right? So a lot of time you are grasping with a very abstract concept or idea, which you have nothing to prove until it's actually done, right? So the ability to understand things that you don't understand and able to move with it, I think are extremely important, right? So I look for those kind of quality. Of course, your portfolio also should say whether you have done some work or you actually have done a lot of work. The interesting portfolio are not those that, nothing against a poly student, but they have a very good competence portfolio because of the technical skill that they build up, but they actually never gain too many points, because it's sort of expected, right? I'm always impressed by someone that has a portfolio that is reflecting a certain kind of interest and pursue. I think many years ago we had a boy that came in and he had this sketchbook, very thick, and it's all about fashion. And he was all the little sketches, little clipping that he cut, that he made, and I look at the designer that he was interested in, that means I know that, hey, he's truly passionate and he's always investigating in this area. So I think that gives a lot of depth, right? And of course, there are some portfolio that say, oh, I take some photography, but then it could be just a few photos snap that they do for their school yearbook or their club, and it's really quite poor. So maybe better not. I'm not sure is that correct thing, but maybe not to show, because it just show that you have no reference, and you are quite close in the sense that you don't do any kind of benchmarking, and you are doing what you do, and you kind of just judge that it's good or no good, right? You don't have a broad, you're not searching for in a broader kind of context. So we look for people who are interested, and because people are interested will actually search for that particular domain and kind of new knowledge in that way.
Yeah, Kianne, do you have any I don't know, advice on how to structure a portfolio, or what might you include in a portfolio?
It's an interesting question because I actually do not have a product design portfolio when I first came in. And I do know some of my friends, they actually got into NUS DID and they were just showing like some of their like comic sketches. So they literally did like a comic book and then they just showed to the interviewers and they got in. So I guess it really kind of depends on who's interviewing you also. For myself, I studied business, actually international business at Ngee Ann Poly. So I definitely do not really have like a very solid PDF portfolio when I got in. But I was working for 2 years and I did a bit of like graphic design. So I guess if you have any like side projects, it doesn't have to be like a freelance project. It can be a project that you worked on yourself. I think the point here is to just show like what your personality in like is like, and what your interest lies in, so that it's easier for the interviewer to kind of like really better understand you, before they, ask any more questions about you. Yeah, they have to be interested first. Yeah.
Yeah, for Alex, actually, from our past Q&A Zooms, we also have some other tutors giving advice, on what might you include in a portfolio. So you can actually check that out and, listen, from the different tutors, from Patrick and Kianne here today, as well as some other perspectives to help you really, format your own portfolio to showcase yourself and your skills for this course. So I hope that was helpful. Then moving on to the next question from Truman, asking about how do exams take place in DID? I assume, I don't know whether that's what you're asking, but about assessments, like how are assessments done in DID? Patrick or Kianne, you want to give some anecdotes of how these assessments
I've never
are done?
taken any exam in DID, so maybe Kianne will have the answer.
Patrick's version of exam is to show him the foam pieces. So Patrick is actually a very good foam instructor. So like when you come into NUS DID, he will be one of your first classes that you take. So it's a 4-year program in NUS DID, and how it works is that in your first year is the foundation year, and you will have to take like classes which are like pre-allocated to you. So in that sense, you can look forward to a lot of, I think in the foundation year right now, it's a lot of foam studies, and we have like a sketching class. And then along the second and third year, you still have electives, which are maybe a bit more theoretical, like the history of industrial design or like manufacturing. So you do have like a few papers in terms of exams here and there in terms of theoretical, but expect a lot of hands-on as well. And then from the first foundation year, you move on to year 2 and year 4, and that's when you get a lot of like project-based kind of like briefs, whereby it's a lot of hands-on and less about, there's no textbook. Yeah, you have to kind of explore, and then you kind of like work your way through. Yeah. I don't know, does it answer your question?
But yeah, so yeah, maybe in short, we hardly have exams here in ID, And
Yeah.
even if there are, it's maybe like at most 1 to 2 kind of paper exams. And other than that, most of the time, our assessments are done in what we call critique, where you kind of have to present whatever that you've done throughout that project. And yeah, your professors will critique the work that you have done and give you feedback and things like that. So that's majority of how we do the assessments in ID. Okay, so moving on to the next question from Rina. Actually curious about platform projects are done in DID. Maybe Patrick and Kianne, do you have any memorable projects that you were involved in? Patrick, in any one that immediately comes to mind, any of the projects that you had supervised, and Kianne, the ones that you have done for yourself?
So the question is about what kind of platform that are memorable for me, or is it about
Yes.
how is it? Oh, okay. Actually, I cannot remember. I ran so many. I think one of the fun one was we did a food project studio, and at the end of it, the student have to actually the presentation is that they have to design almost like a little booth and serve the food that they have created or designed. So some of them make kind of a jello that kind of wiggle around, and they design this little device to hold it. So the whole idea was to look at food as a theatrical kind of performance of how the preparation, the serving, the way that people move around with the food that they have gotten from your store. So I think that was kind of one of the more memorable one that is like, and of course, we have also many along the way. I think currently, I think we're doing one on 2 piece of ply. So the student have to design a piece of furniture with the constraint of just 2 pieces of plywood. I'm not sure is it going to be memorable. We are in the process of going through halfway through, so we're at a very painful state now. So yeah, so the memory is strong, but not in the positive way at this moment. But I think we'll find a way to get something nice.
I can share. For me, I think the more one of the there's a lot of memorable projects. Maybe one of the more recent ones was this project whereby I created like a frame for geckos, which is like household lizards in Singapore, you know, like those that you always hear by the roadside or like in your house. Everybody has lizards, you know, you see them everywhere, right? It's about conserving nature and respecting nature, and it's memorable to me because it's actually going to be exhibited in Paris, and we're currently working towards it right now. And it just sometimes feel a bit unreal, like, oh my god, like this is really gonna go there. I guess it just goes to show that in DID you can really like kind of like grow your ideas from ideas to conceptualization to actually like materializing it, and actually finally maybe you have a chance to exhibit it. And yeah, so we're still in the midst of that, so maybe you guys can look out for it as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. Maybe moving on to this question. Sorry, I realized that I accidentally missed a question up earlier in the chat. So it's a question from Anchen, where yeah, they're kind of drawn by the interdisciplinary courses, right, in ID, you know, the variety of projects that students can take in ID. But from Patrick and Kianne, you know, are there any advice on how a student who's maybe going to come into the ID course, how may they hone a skill, prepare themselves for the course? So any particular skill set you think is perhaps a good one to train and hone before they come into the ID?
That's a tough one, right? Yeah, I think any kind of technical skills, I guess either, yeah, if you are interested, why not? I mean, if you're interested in creating things in 3D printing, you know, I think that's always, or interested in tinkering, those are more technical kind of area, right? If you're also interested in like photography or sculptures, those are things that develop your sensibility as well, right? In fact, I will encourage you to read a lot, read widely, right? About philosophy, about not even about any discipline, even just read a lot of fiction, right? Because I think design is really about connecting to people and able to tell story and able to articulate those ideas, whether verbally or in thoughts and words. So I think to expand your mind and to have new concept or to be able to have the structure to build new ideas, I think reading is for me actually the most important thing, rather than any form of other technical bits of sketching and drawing and all that, right? Unless you say I want to hit the ground running, I think there are a lot of courses online now that you can take. I like to always show like domestic. I signed up to. I subscribe to so many domestica courses because they have these little things that say, oh, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, right? Then they end up to be a bit like the books that I buy, just sitting on the shelf and never been flipped through ever again. So, but there are lots of resources out there. So find anything that are interest, stick to it and see through it. Don't be like me, just buy them for display purposes. Then I guess you'll learn a lot. So start small, nothing that needs to be too big or too ambitious. Yeah, whichever things that speaks to you, get started and commit to it and do it well enough. So I think that's where you start.
And maybe to add on, I feel like one thing that I think all of us are kind of used to by now in our fourth year is that you probably won't know everything. And that's something that you have to get used to. And Google probably would be your best friend because a lot of the things that we learn along the way sometimes is very project specific. And this is something that's very unique to our course, I find. And try not to overwhelm yourself by thinking like, oh, I need to learn like all these softwares, then I can be like a very good designer. It doesn't mean like that. And even if you are trying to learn a software, maybe for some of you may have like prior experience to learning like graphic design or anything. You can learn one software at a time and you find that the skills are transferable in some sense. And a hot tip maybe is like, for example, if you're trying to learn Adobe, right, you can start from Illustrator and then you go on to Photoshop before you move on to like After Effects, which is like illustration, then Photoshop, then like animation. And some of these skills you'll find that it's easier to if you build from like a very strong foundation. So like you kind of like layer on from easy to hard. Yeah. And I see actually another question from Anchen. I think it's the second part, and I think you asked a very good question, Anchen, because Patrick is the best person to ask this question to. Patrick, what do you do when your creative juices run out? Patrick never runs out of ideas, by the way.
No, you go to sleep. Sleeps are very important. Right. One of the challenge, I think actually one of the biggest challenge for ID students because of the amount of work that's there. A lot of people don't manage it well enough. So they don't sleep. And if you don't sleep, your mind is not able to process any or to learn any new things. You cannot get new idea. So I always get new idea after I have a good sleep. When I wake up, right? You don't get any idea by sitting there and trying to grind something out from there in that sense, right? And of course, if you are out of something, then go and look somewhere else, right? There are always find ways that you can get inspired by films. Go to unfortunately we don't have many bookstore left. Go to Kinokuniya, flip through all the different magazines. That's what I always tell my students. If you want to know what is going on, what is the trend and what is happening, or to have a sense of, what is kind of going on in the world, don't go Kinokuniya, flip through every magazine there, not just the design or architecture magazine, but also the business magazine, the fashion, photography, everything that is there. Then I think you can have a sense of the pulse of what is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Kianne, do you have any tips for yourself on how you might get yourself out of a rut when you run out of creative juices?
Actually, it's true. But I kind of like redraw myself, rest, and then come back. Yeah, I think it's a very different culture in Singapore, I think we tend to like go all about the place, trying to explore every single thing, and then like exhaust ourselves so much before we finally arrive at the idea. And because we also have like professors from like other nationalities, like for example, we have from the States and from France as well, and you get a sense of like how they teach and how their former students are different. So like for example, I heard that the French students kind of like they actually don't do anything for like 3 days, and then on the day of the day before the submission, then bam, everything is there. They just do it. So it's kind of like how to say different, knowing different things, and then you try not to overwhelm yourself so much. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Kian. So maybe moving on to the next question, I believe also from Kimio, asking Patrick in particular, when you mentioned about how technical proficiency, it's kind of usually expected from polytechnic students, applicants who come from design school in poly. So what might be a difference with them a good fit for the course other than their technical skill sets and proficiency? I guess especially from coming from him, he's asking about, you know, any advice that you might give to a poly student like them who's a bit more technical in nature and finding it challenging to break out of that technical thinking. Yeah.
I think if you're coming in, and if you do get in, then it's a perfect timing for you. We used to have a poly student coming in at the second year, right? But now, even if you are product design students, you are coming in from the first year. So just recently, I just finished my form study with the students, and we're doing some workshops. And I was a bit surprised. I wasn't aware that the poly student has to come in from the first year. I was surprised by the level of work that was being produced. But then the student was also telling me that they kind of realized that all the design fundamental modules, right? We have many 6-week based modules, and you're running 2 modules at the same time. A lot of them is teaching them how to think, right? To ask questions in a different way, and to how to come up with different kind of ideas. For example, Hans projects or Dawn's and Z's platform studio as well. So I can't give you an answer of how to do that, but if you come, then you are privileged to be in the first year for the first time. And so I think it's going to be quite interesting. We're kind of observing this new methods or this new way. If the poly student plus their technical skills and they're able to think differently, then I think if we're successful, then I think you end up with quite a wicked combination in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe perhaps it's also about heeding Patrick's advice earlier, right? About just reading, expanding your mind, and maybe going a little bit beyond just the technical design books and literature and everything. Just, you know, read and be exposed to more than just design. Perhaps that may help you. Okay, so moving on to the next question we have from Vivi, asking about whether there are any people who take H2 art in JC who actually are in DID. I don't know whether Kian, you know any of your classmates who took H2 art in JC, because yeah, she's quite worried that she may not be able to cope, not coming from a poly background. So yeah, Kian, any thoughts on that?
Can I assure you, please don't be worried. I think NUS DID welcomes people from different disciplines, really. We do have someone who took H2 art, and she's in my batch as well, and she made it to the 4th year. So she's doing okay, she's doing all right. And we also have students who are a lot from JC, a lot from, even if you're from poly, it doesn't mean that they are from PD. We have friends who are from, I think it was environmental studies or something along the lines. So you can see how sometimes we kind of like switched and then like kind of jumped into ID. And you'll find that no matter what your background is, I think you should recognize the value in where you come from, because this will often be reflected in how you think, what your attitude or your take on certain perspectives, things is like. So it's actually a plus, and don't think of it as like it's a minus. It's not, okay?
Yeah, and Vivi, if it's any consolation to you, I was a JC student as well who went into DID, and I didn't even take part or anything. I was in the most science stream possible, JC, and I still made it out alive of this course, and I guess thriving as well after. So if that serves as any consolation and comfort to you, that yeah, you really don't have to worry whether or not you are from poly, AC, whatever sort of academic background you're from. Okay, I think that is the questions that we have on the chat so far. So any other students, do you have any other questions for Kianne or Patrick? Please also, if you want to jump the question queue, right, you may also just turn on your video and ask us the question directly also. Any questions from anybody?
Everyone applied already. Is that? Oh, by the way, please do apply early if you can,
Yes,
because in case the portal crash or anything, we don't know, right? So yeah.
early is always better, right? Oh, okay, we have a question from Ting about the ratio of the JC to poly students in DID. Well, we don't have the exact numbers, but maybe Kianne or Patrick, do you have a sensing of roughly?
Actually, I don't know now. Because I think we used to take in when they were coming in as a second year students. I think there's always about 10 of them, right? So about a quarter or a fifth in that sense. But now that they're coming the first year, and of course we are not taking into account also those poly students that are from other courses. That means non-design courses. So I don't have the number now. Yeah.
I think it also depends based on like who applies year to year. So we don't really have a ratio per se. Yeah.
But I think still dominantly JC student, right? At least
think so.
2/3. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, so maybe at this point, oh, okay, there's one more question coming in from Anshan. May I ask, are the students in DID more studious or hands-on?
I thought both, right?
I think it's kind of both studious, not in terms of textbook, studious maybe in terms of researching to get insights that inform your design process and your design output. So studious, not in the textbook manner. That's my answer.
Yeah, my students are half-half. A lot of very studious and not hands-on enough for my thesis this year.
Hey.
Yeah, I like to talk, you know.
So Kianne, which camp do you fall under?
I don't know.
Oh, she started very hands-on. Then after that, talk, and then still talking.
Okay, we'll see. Anyway, we have our grad show in June. So I mean, beyond this application exercise, if you guys are still interested because you have like 1 or 2 years more before you actually apply, the grad show would be sometime in early June. So you can look out for that as well. Sorry, before we miss another question, there's a question from Truman. She asked if, as an international applicant, how many international students are there on average in DID? International students, we do have.
I think NUS has if I'm not wrong, we only take in about 10% of for each intake international students. So if you are having an intake of 50, then maybe there's about 5 that we can take in. Yeah. So, but I think we are not necessarily always hitting that quota. We do have international students, but I guess it's overall the quality of the cohort. So we probably take everyone based on the merits of their the result that they have, and also the interview as well. So I don't think it has anything to do with whether if international students or not in that way.
Okay, we have one more question. Maybe that can be our last question for today. From from Vivi. Oh, okay, 2 questions. Okay, so first question from Vivi. Okay, so she's interested in topics human connection, psychology, storytelling, and that is perhaps the direction that she wants to go into as a designer. But yeah, so but she's worried that she cannot cope in terms of the technical aspects of DID. So perhaps Kianne and Patrick, do you have any thoughts on how really technical DID is, and whether someone who is interested in perhaps the soft side of things, would someone that be able to cope in DID?
I remember we do have I do have a junior, and she's taking DID as a major and a minor in interactive media. I'm not so sure if that's what you're referring to. You just have to be, I think, really disciplined about your time, and then you will realize that if, let's say, you do choose to pursue like a minor in something, or like to choose like electives which are more rigorous from other schools, or like the media school in NUS, because you can go like cross schools and then like take their other electives, but you just have to manage your time, because some of them can be quite rigorous, and it's a fact, because I did take like a creative coding class under the media school in NUS, and I think you would expect that every week it's like weekly output. So it's kind of like the same in poly, whereby you have to put in like continuous effort. So I think as long as you manage to, manage your time, I think it's not a problem. But do expect to put in a lot of hard work.
I think a lot of people have this perception that if I say something is technical, it's become like some kind of very difficult, right? Say coding is so technical, it's so difficult. But do remember that my nephew is primary 2 and he's doing some coding, but of course at a very rudimentary level. So I think any kind of technical skill, there's always a kind of an entry level, right? And then there's now everything is kind of broken down that you can learn it in a very fundamental, basic way. And of course, like say how to code. In fact, even I'm not sure how my colleague at computer science would say, but I'm not sure, maybe half of them, everyone can code, but not everyone can code well, right? So someone might need a 2-page to finish a code, and someone can do it in 2 lines. So then there's a difference between the good coder and the bad coder. But important thing is that you know the fundamental and the basic of it, and not everybody can be good in everything, right? For me, like I'm not good at CADing, right? But I know the concepts of the CADing, what it can do, the different kind of principle and feature. So it's very easy for me to be able to tell someone what I want and how I want it to be achieved, right? Same as any kind of technology, something to do with electronics or sensor. I'm running a lab with a bunch of professors from engineering, biomedical, data science, and I'm not an expert in any of them, right? But as a designer, you kind of are able to know the potential and the principle behind whether is it machine learning or AI, and how this kind of come together, and how that can be helpful to create the desired end state or the experience that you are trying to achieve, right? And so it's important to be able to know a bit of everything, but don't kind of expect yourself to be expert in everything. I think that's probably too difficult. So that's kind of, for me, where we are coming from.
Yeah, and also we do have like a computational design class in your foundation year, I think your second year probably. And when the class started, I think my cohort is the second batch, and a lot of us actually don't know how to code. So I think you just have to be patient with yourself and you know, be open to learning, and then just try. It's okay to fail. Just try and see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So I think we have just one last question from Alex asking about whether, I guess a slightly more administrative question about whether a fail in GP would be detrimental in consideration to getting into the interview process. So Alex, I think perhaps we can get back to you very specifically on this after today's call. If you could just stay on and then we can leave some of your contact information. I believe that even so, there is that minimum kind of grade required to actually come into NUS in general, but we also do have some sort of aptitude-based considerations for admission as well. So that can be a possibility, but I think we can get to a clear answer for you after this. So I think that would conclude today's Q&A. Maybe any last words of advice from Patrick and Kianne for the prospective students who are applying for DID?
I would advise students to find out more about what we do. In the interview part, we'll ask you if you have any questions and all that. And sometimes people will ask us, oh, what is this and what is that? And then the thing is that in fact, all this information are on our website, right? And if you are coming to this course, if you're interested, then I'll probably expect you to kind of go through everything that is there to get as much information and to explore as many of the project that has been done as possible. And to me, that's a kind of a plus point if you are able to tell us, oh, this project was really interesting, rather than if you ask you, oh, do you know about, or to ask me a question that, hey, it's kind of obvious, but seems like you have not even checked out our website, and then that definitely will be a minus point. So yeah, do your due diligence before coming. I think that's important to be successful.
Kianne?
I would encourage everyone to apply. Just come as you are. Don't be intimidated because you see like all these projects maybe out there on the website and you're like, how can I do that? Just come as you are. You don't have to pretend like you know everything, in the interview, really. Just be sincere. Ask questions. If you want to ask questions, it's okay. Yeah, and all the best, guys.
Okay, yes, so thanks for that. Just before everyone leaves, I'll just drop in some links into the group chat. So for those students who do not know yet, we do have a Telegram group where some of our students, alumni, as well as tutors are on there. So if you wish to ask us questions at any time, you may actually join our Telegram group and ask us there. And also number 2 is that we are having our e-open house happening tomorrow. So if you haven't already registered for that, let me just drop the link in the chat. You may do so at that link and register to hear more from actually alumni and tutors tomorrow. Okay, but yes, if not, then thank you everyone so much for joining our session today. You can look forward to meeting us again tomorrow, as well as another Zoom Q&A happening on Tuesday evening. So yeah, thank you everybody.
Have a good weekend, guys. All the best.